So, today we're going to tackle a really big and honestly a pretty powerful theological idea: absolution. Now, I know that sounds complicated, but we're going to break it all down through the incredible story of one man, a man whose desperate hunt for forgiveness nearly drove him insane, and how this one single concept changed absolutely everything for him.
And that quote right there, that's from Martin Luther himself. See, before he was the guy who kicked off the Protestant Reformation, he was just a monk, and he was completely obsessed with one thing: being right with God. And this quote, well, it just shows you how far he was willing to push himself to get there.
I mean, that's how our source puts it, and it's really not an exaggeration. His struggle was so deep, so all-consuming, that it pushed him right to the edge. You have to picture a man literally drowning in his own guilt, just clawing for a sense of peace that always seemed just out of reach.
So yeah, let's start right there with Luther's torment, because his experience is the perfect frame for the problem that absolution is designed to solve. What do you do when your own conscience is your biggest enemy?
And when you look at what he was doing, it's just extreme. This wasn't a casual thing for him. He was actively punishing his own body. He'd fast until he collapsed, sleep on freezing stone floors, and confess his sins for 6 hours straight. But here's the thing: none of it worked. He still lived in this constant gripping fear because no matter what he did, he never felt clean. He never felt forgiven. So you have to ask, what could possibly break a cycle like that? Well, it all came down to a single word, a concept that our source says he, and a lot of us, probably, had totally misunderstood: the word absolution. Okay, so this definition is really the key to the whole thing. According to our source, absolution isn't just about being forgiven or let off the hook. It's a legal and permanent removal of guilt. And that word legally, that's the whole ballgame right there. And this is a fantastic way to see the difference. You know, a lot of us think of forgiveness as God just promising, okay, I won't bring that up again. It's like a pardoned offense. But absolution, as it's presented here, is way more radical than that. It's not a pardon. It's a canceled charge. The guilt itself is legally erased from the record, as if it was never there to begin with. This verse is right at the center of the whole argument. Our source explains that no condemnation is legal language. It means there are literally no active charges against you in heaven's courtroom. The case isn't just pending. There's no sentence waiting for you. It's over. Done. And this right here, this brings us to the absolute heart of the matter: the idea that absolution is a legal verdict, a statement of fact, and not an emotional state that we have to try and drum up inside ourselves. It's a totally fair question, right? How can something spiritual be a legal thing? Well, the source tells us to look no further than the actual language used in the Bible. I mean, just look at these words from Colossians: canceled, record, charges. This is an emotional, touchy-feely language. This is courtroom talk. It's judicial. The text is describing a legal transaction where a list of charges has been stamped null and void. And this is the trap, right? This is where so many people, just like Luther, get completely stuck. They base their entire standing with God on how they feel. I just don't feel forgiven today. But the argument here is that your feelings don't change the facts. Absolution is a judicial reality that stands firm whether you're having a good day or a bad day. It depends on a verdict that's already been handed down.
And here's the proof in Luther's own life. Notice the sequence here. He didn't feel his way into this truth. It was the other way around. He first understood a theological fact, and then the incredible feeling of relief and freedom followed. He felt reborn after he accepted the verdict was true.
So, if this verdict is a real standing decision, what does that actually mean for how we live day to day? Let's dig into the practical side of living like someone who's been legally cleared of all charges. Now, this is a really challenging idea. You know how sometimes people hang on to their guilt because they think it's humble? Like, oh, I'm not worthy of being forgiven. But our source flips that completely on its head. It argues that refusing to accept the verdict isn't humility at all. It's actually a form of unbelief. It's like telling the judge he's wrong. To show just how total this removal is, the source points to this incredible verse. It's not just that our sins are put aside or covered up, they are separated from us by a distance you can't even measure. An infinite distance. And this is such a fascinating detail about that verse. Think about it.
If you travel far enough north, you eventually hit the North Pole and start heading south. North and south meet. But east and west, they are directions on a globe that never ever intersect. The metaphor is saying your past self and your absolved self are on paths that will never cross again.
So, what does this freedom actually look like in practice? Our source boils it down to these three things. First, stop punishing yourself, like Luther was doing. Second, stop reliving yesterday's mistakes over and over. And third, stop crawling around in guilt when the verdict has already told you to stand up free.
Okay, so let's tie all of this together for the big final takeaway. We've seen the problem of a guilty conscience, we've defined the solution of absolution, and we've looked at what it means. So what's the bottom line? It all comes back to that courtroom analogy. The trial is over, the evidence has been heard, the price has been paid, and a final binding verdict has been rendered. The case, from this perspective, is officially and forever closed. And this, right here, is the promise that holds it all together. The source highlights that powerful phrase at the end, free indeed. Not kind of free, not free on probation, not free until you mess up again. Completely, truly, and absolutely free.
And so that's the question we're left with. We've laid out this idea of a judicial reality versus just an emotional feeling. And it really makes you think, what is the actual difference between just feeling forgiven in a moment and living in the constant, unshakable reality of having been declared truly free?